and for the folks on the other end. So I actually get to introduce, is on the Zoom and couldn't hear things. But he was another one of our very important boaters, boat captains, a friend of Mike's from a previous trip. I think I was just introducing Lee and Patty, also friends of Mike. Lee was a river ranger, and Patty was a endangered Colorado fish biologist. And I think that's the rest of it. Okay, so Mullicoke River Works was our outfitter for the rafts, for the kitchens, for some miscellaneous stuff. All of the boaters brought some of the things, and they also did the shovels. So this is us packing up at the Mullicoke River House in Flagstaff. Both the upper pictures, and then when we were at East Ferry, packing up, packing the rafts. Just a little bit about camp life, and also a shout out to Lee. This is one of his photographs. He is a professional photographer as well, and he did some beautiful photos of the trip. But this is what our camp generally looked like for boats parked next to the shore, and the dory always got its choice. Just another note about camp life. I'm going to turn it over to Vincent and John pretty soon. Thank goodness. But camp life was a joy. Everybody pitched in. Everybody did more than they were assigned. Everybody had tasks, but we cooked our own. We did our own dinners and joint dinners. Everybody did 2 dinners apiece, and then we did our own breakfasts and lunches. But we had a variety of rope tossing, a lot of fires. Lee was our fire king. Patty did a presentation on endangered fish. We sat around a lot talking. We got sand blown into our tents, and Jason had a little peace and quiet on his raft now and then. So, and then there was food and water, and the food was excellent. We had Dutch oven dinners. We had linguine and clam sauce. We had fresh cornbread, and we always had fresh water. There was a lot of water. You'll see in some of the slides that come up later on, there was a lot of water happening. So, so I'm going to turn it over to Vincent. I lost Vincent and John. Hi.
Now, when Kat and Chet called us to go about the Grand, we thought it was going to be 5,000 CFS. And we're like, I'm in. John and I were on a previous trip in October, a few months before, in 2022, where it was 5,000 CFS. So we knew all the lines. We're like, shut up, let's do this. And then we find out it's going to be 40,000 plus. Well, we're at downriver, and there's a whole bunch of books over here on the Grand. Not a single one of them has any information on 40,000 CFS. So you're like, well, there's 226 miles. The biggest thing that we got off, where I did not realize this till now, or after running it, is the rapids were easier. It was, everything else was 10 times as tough. I've never in my life ever missed a camp in 30 years of rafting. I missed camp, I think, twice. John missed it once or twice. The people on that previous picture missed camp. And it's not because lack of effort or lack of strength or lack of, on the other side of the river. We knew where we were going. We knew camp was coming up. We knew it was there. We saw it. But there was to be that eddy fence coming in, and we were trying to break it. We just weren't strong enough, 18.5-foot boats, 40+ thousand CFS flying by. So that was the biggest thing that if you ever get on that trip, worry about camps, eddies, getting into camp. And then a lot of these camps, like if it's your favorite camp, it might not be there. We're on a trip in 2018 high flow and it went up 15 feet. And I'm not exactly sure how much went up, but I think our camp went up 15 feet. And we kind of went slow so we can run all the fun rapids, the inner gorge at high water. And that only happened with Mike. Mike was like, I ran this before, here are the lines. I have the notes. And John and I are like, just do this. And Kat and Chip were like, we're in. So we had a group vote. Bruce was on my boat. Natalie was on John's boat. Jason, Lee, and Patty, we were all in. If one person said, I don't feel comfortable, let's layover day, let's do that. So we had a strong team. We all had to count on each other. I had to count on my bow monkey. I mean, my Bruce. But that was the biggest thing that we got out of it, is just how do you make it into camp? How do you just, it's coming up, it's there, it was there. How do you go to the next slide?
Just a little intro and introduction. So, you know, we were Kat was setting up this trip based upon our previous experiences together. We got invited. We were talking to do 5,000, as Vince said. We were concerned about an entirely different set of hazards. We were worried about scraping. We were worried about not having enough capacity to carry gear, enough boat captains out there. And we showed up to something completely different. 80% of the people in this room we voted with before, you know, kind of, and I don't want to get preachy or everything, but everything's in the setup, whether it's right at the rapid or setting up the trip. And I just want to take the moment and, you know, go back to the introductions. Kat and Chet's preparation, they spent years upon years thinking about this, many nights, a long time, which result in the boat out there. You can see a physical manifestation of that. Mike Martin, you know, Kat alluded to this, but I can't stress enough, this trip would not have happened without him. No relation to Tom Martin. I will tell a little funny story. We're in the garage, the Moen Copey house. This guy calls up Tom Martin. So we got Mike Martin, Tom Martin on the phone, who was again very generous with his information. But we could, I spent 25 years in the military. Intelligence is everything. The more you know about what's around the next corner, second and third order effects, the better off and the more safe you're going to be. Mike did that for us. He handed us that as a gift. We had a tight crew of 10 people. There's nothing better than that level of confidence, knowing that everyone on that trip has their stuff wired tight. Jason, a longtime waterman, not tons of rafting experience, but a guy that you know is going to be there. He made every hard eddy. He made every hard camp. Vince and I missed him. So it's humbling to be the person that gets up here to stand here, but it was an entire crew. And you could not put together all the money in the world to get a convergence of people, time, place, permit, being at that rapid, at that day, with that flow, with that weather. Absolutely magical. So give it that framework of what we thought we were going to get and what we got. We got an absolute gift of crew, people, experience. Number of times Mike's been down there, the preparation that went in. So, you know, this is just not going to do it justice, but we'll do our best.
Just some hikes, Dory. Oh, here's. We took John and I and Mike, we went up to the top of the rim, and I didn't bring a camera. The only camera I have is my phone. Got up to the top and had service. But this was President Harding Rapid. And then over here is the after, and that's President Harding. And we talked to other boaters that President Harding is, I think it's maybe a 5 or a 6. That turned to an 8 or a 9. A lot of boats had problems on these rapids that were nothing. That turned into the most significant rapids on the river. So that was something you just don't know. There's no books on it. And if we didn't have Mike, we might have been, what do we go, 3 days without seeing another boat? We saw one boat for one rapid, and then we didn't see anyone. If you took off that one boat, we didn't see another group on the river for 3 days.
So one of the keys with that, and Mike knew this, we learned it after, he was teeing up our timing the whole time to get ready for this water to rise. And he knew that Eminence was a large slope beach right below Harding. And I might have stopped at Harding, you might have stopped at Harding, you might have gone past Eminence and stopped somewhere. He picked the exact precise proper spot. We got there, we were taking bets on how high the water would come, where we put our sand stakes, double up our lines. And we were able to sit there and park and watch that water come up to exactly where we had predicted. Next group that came down, and if you've run Harding, you know you kind of run that on the left there. They didn't make it, they didn't make the Harding, and they came down on top of us, didn't want to camp with us and stayed in some really scrubby, junky spot. They were kind of hot and not having a good night, because they didn't have Mike planned for that.
This was Harding, the picture right here is Harding when we pulled in, and then it was a layover day. I think that morning when we launched and the people were still breaking down camp when we got to Harding. People were still there. So we launched early to get this camp. Mike said, here's the camp we want. We're going to get there early, and we did.
Did you figure out?
Hance, oh my God, Hance was. We scouted a lot just because we didn't know what was going on. But when we scouted Hance, traditional run is a right run, pull in, you drop behind the duck pond, and then you miss the goalpost and whale rock and other stuff. This one, I'm pretty sure my girlfriend could have rode if she would have started on the left and just kind of pulled left and right. But there were some holes there that would have swallowed a J rig, a 30-foot J rig, anything. It was a waterfall. The right side, the land of the giants were during the high flow was land of the giants, and we wanted nothing of it. But if you're like, oh, it's the right run, go in, drop to the left, you would have gotten hurt. So we put our ego aside, you scout everything, and I'm glad that we did. But that was a monster rapid.
So this, you want these?
So are we going right to left or left to right? I guess right to left the way is down. Right?
Yeah.
Rapids are flowing.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So Angela, you've run Hands. You came right through here.
Right, yeah. Okay.
And you can see this is out of the wall. When we got there, this was all covered. We scouted from somewhere up here. We mostly had the same opinion. We wanted to run left. I foolishly was thinking of being a little more aggressive out in the middle. It's not this precise set of waves, but there were a lot of waves here. This was the most massive hole I think I'll ever see in my life. I can't genuinely say it was as big as this building, but no exaggeration. It was probably from the corners to there out to here. There was no way if you ran right that it would be survivable intact. We skirted the left side very, very close to the shore, way over here.
But we only knew that from a scout. All the books say in 2011, there was a flash flood, so the left run was closed off. So now the traditional run goes right to left. But during the high flow, scout it and you'll probably be going left. We don't know what this video is.
Yep.
That's me actually. Relatively straightforward. Yeah, traditional right side. Right. Those are, that's an 18.5-foot boat. It's bigger than any boat in here. And you can see how you're in it and you don't see us for a bit. Those holes were huge. That was fun. Eminence to, and it dropped just below once we ran Crystal. That night it dropped. Eminence. Mile 44.
we slow rolled, so again, I credit Mike with all of this, and I was uneasy personally, because I don't have as much experience as these guys. And my experience has been you move through the top, make miles so you don't get hung up. He wisely knew the water was gonna be moving so fast, we would have no problem with miles, and we didn't. So we slow rolled the top and just kind of picked our way through, and as Vin said, got in very early in the right camp so we could sit up.
This is a 15-foot boat outside. But look how Kat and Chet are jumping to the right, jumping to the left. Mike told them, I need you to stay mobile. They're not sitting holding down. They are active. They are jumping right, jumping left. They come back up and they're just smiling. They're like, I'm in the wrong boat.
It's fun. And and if you look at the boat, you can see where the blue paint has been.
Butt washed.
Just watch that one. We're going to watch that one again. Perfect. Hey, right there. Nice one.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
That was. And then it's kind of scary where you're on the river and you don't see anyone else.
That was
It's like, oh, that was Spectre. Same one.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I really wish, it's a real shame you can't hear from Mike, because
Where does Michael live? Where is he? Is he about?
He's down in Creed.
Huh?
He's in Creed, Colorado. He's on the line, so maybe we might get him later.
And these are perfect runs, but look, see how the wave will come up and 18.5 boat, pick it up, move it, have it. It was just, we're just fortunate to have, look at the top. Patty just jumping. She was a good guy too. She was strong.
The smallest.
Smallest was 8, and the smallest was the Dory. Then we had 2 18s, and then John and I had 18.5s. More room.
there's more room, there's bigger boats, the frames were set up a little bit differently, we could fit more gear on. And I was frankly surprised how much of a difference that extra little bit made.
So that was.
No, we did it because of the fact that both, all the above.
Yes.
And there are some places where the 18.5 doesn't fit quite as well as the 18, but we won't tell that story.
And another reason for the 18.5s was that we weren't sure that the Dory was gonna go. So we might have had 3 people extra on the 4 boats.
It would have been better at 5,000 or 40,000. I would prefer the 18. No, at 5,000 or 40,000. It's gonna float higher with more gear on it.
We avoided Crystal. Lee and Patty gave it a little kiss, but Crystal Hole, there's pictures of high flow at Crystal. It was an easy run. You could just follow the right shore, kind of kiss the hole, and
You'll know there's not somewhere right around here. And normally you're sneaking and scooching down there, sometimes a downstream ferry to scooch by that. You can see how much water is more. It was actually easier at the higher flow, I thought, than it was at the traditional flow.
so Crystal turns from a 9 to maybe a 6.
Of course, you have to keep your head up and be careful. You know, the island didn't appear to be exposed, but we were nowhere near it to have it be a problem.
Lava 20,000 is awesome. We did a left run and we saw I got video of some commercials.
That's next.
Oh,
We got the video. We got Lee's video. So the one on the. So this is.
each boat gets progressively worse.
We watched 2 groups go through.
No, just
One group.
Just one.
So we were a lot further left.
Yeah, Vince can show you on the screen where we very non-traditional part of our life.
So that was their lead boat, which everyone else in their group should have followed. There should be one more. Apparently sideways, you can do the ledge hole at this water level. Blind squirrel.
I think they just couldn't. Convince him. Okay, so those are,
So we made it to camp. And now for months, we've been talking high flow, high flow. People were sending us texts. Here's the water level. Here's what's going on. High flow. I mean, I couldn't go to the grocery store. Someone saying, oh, you're going to do the high flow. So this is, we made it to camp. And look how much the water dropped. We had to get everyone on boats, water bucket, 10 people on each raft to get them back out. It dropped 91, just below Crystal on the right, about a mile and a half past Crystal. And once it started dropping, that morning, I got a hole in my boat. We parked at Neville's, below Neville's. And Mike, the guy, Martin, that wrote the book said, if you camp above the rapids, it's calmer. Camp below the rapids, that's you get the splash. So I never realized that. But we were camped below the rapids. That's where the camp was. Camped there probably 8 times over my last few trips. And we tie all the boats together, but there was a tree there and I couldn't tie my boat together and it just got sloshed back and forth. In the morning, went up there and Bruce goes, hey, our boat has a hole in it. So we pumped up the boat. Sure enough, pumped it up, next rapid Hance, pump it up, next rapid. And then we get to Phantom Ranch. I ran up there. You can make it from Phantom to the top and back in 27.5 minutes with a dry suit. Well, everyone else is getting water because we have to run more rapids. We can go up there, grab our mail, drop off mail, and now you're going to run Horn, Granite, Hermit, Crystal. And then we did everything perfect. We had one swim in Horn. Mike was in there, and next thing you know, I'm looking at him and it's like, he's out. He's rowing in there, and there's the entire dory is filled up with water. The dory's going there. He's just going out. Oh, they're in the front hollering and screaming. They pulled him back in. But that was their only swim. Mike comes in, he's like, yeah, I need a little bath anyways. But we finally made it to camp, and you finally can rest. Well, everyone rested, but John, we tied all the boats together and he stayed up the entire night. Now it's dropping 8-10 feet. And if your boat is underneath a stick or a rock, you're going to pop your boat. So John stayed up the entire night and let out all 4 boats, checked on the dory. He didn't get any sleep. But that was part of, if you don't have someone willing to stay up that knows how to, and he has a lot of rigging experience where he had all these mechanical advantages and he's pulling them out at time.
It was physically very easy because I set up a pulley system and all I had to do was just kind of let out the pulley system and let the boats out. The scary part, there's only a couple times I was scared the whole trip. One was when I was getting close to the eddy and the dory was hanging off the back of the 4 boats and getting close to the current, because God forbid I lose the dory. And the other time was when Mike let me row the dory in a flat area for about 5 minutes and I was terrified. I've never rowed a dory in my life. Other than that, not scary.
But that's part of the high flow is you got these big boats that are gonna get centered. So that was tough.
that was our camp that floated away.
It was a great camp.
Is this 110? I think it's 110 camp. Great
The
waterfall.
top is Stone Creek where we had all our stuff blown away. that lower one,
No, this is all Stone Creek.
this is all Stone Creek?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that, yeah, kind of did, we lose the camp there.
What do you mean by you lost?
Well, first the water, a couple different things. We stupidly, and we all are culpable, we went on a hike and left everything set up and an windstorm blew down. And then water came up and kind of like cut us off.
Oh, you're just, okay, so you expect to get washed.
No, exactly.
So those are all pictures of the same part of the island.
Yeah.
And in the one, this one, so this is what it looked like when we got there. This is what it looked like in the morning, as this is all being eroded away.
Okay.
We had a moat. And who the ducky? Did
There
we
was a-
find
Oh,
it?
the
There was
ducky
a
was
rubber
there.
ducky there.
We had the little ducky swimming around that little.
And that's the hydrograph of that time. It went up like 6,000 CFS. Okay,
All right,
Well, I do want to talk about the kind of a safety thing, 'cause I think it's important. So, we've had the opportunity to reminisce on all the wonderful, good things and do that, but. Safety is, we're always, we're going in and that's the key. We didn't have any mishaps. Because of preparedness. Vince talked about him missing a camp. I want to just tell my little story where I missed the camp. I screwed up. And fortunately, it was okay. I'm a believer that I think I might have said this earlier. I was telling somebody, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment, right? I made some bad judgments and we were okay. But I would like, I try to learn from it. I hope everybody else does. The camp that I missed, everybody, I'm pulling as hard as I can, trying to get that thing moved. I think I can move a boat. I was just not able to do it. So I couldn't catch the eddy and I was trying to catch the very tail end bottom of the eddy. And I wasn't going to do it, but I was just skimming it. So I think, I'm embarrassed. I think my crew's looking at me and they're going to judge me. We all do this, right? But my ego is in full force. I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to jump out of my boat and grab my bow line, jump onto the rocky shore and hold my boat. You're all groaning, I'm groaning. At the time, it seemed like a good idea. You physics majors, F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration. My puny, weak body is not able to hold a 2,000-pound boat moving in the current. And just so happened, this is when I didn't have somebody in the boat with me to help me out. And everybody else is fine. This could go if I let my boat go. My boat with a good portion of our gear is down the river at a very high flow. I'm not with the boat, bad situation all around. I only had two choices, let the boat go or go after the boat. I think I chose wisely, I went after the boat, but now I got a problem. I'm in the water, holding onto a boat, 18.5 boat, very high. I'm not any younger, kind of hard to climb up. It looked like I had to climb Mount Everest to get back in the boat. Good thing is, my rapid run on that boat. Ziggied around, got on the rapid run, got in the boat, moved down, caught the next eddy, everything was okay. What's the lesson? Have a stupid rapid. One, don't be stupid, right? Don't try to do a maneuver. I should have pleasantly floated around. My friends would judge me and make fun of me at the fire, and they'd make fun of me here, but better that than going 4 miles downriver. They would have forgiven me, rigged me a while, get into the next eddy safely. It was a dumb move. But I mitigated that by having ropes, having lines, having my rapid run, being prepared to keep a bad situation from getting worse. And I think we can all tell those stories, but I share that so, be prepared. Before we launched, Vince and I, we try to hold each other accountable. We put taglines on the boats. We put straps underneath the boats in case the boat is upside down. If you were to go back and look at the boat rigging, simple things we talk about, but do you do it every time? Do you make sure if we weren't probably going to get pinned, but I had ropes and gear available. You have your first aid kit available, all those kind of things. We never needed them. Thank goodness, right? But if we did, I think we would have been okay. So we really, really emphasized that and fortunately didn't need it. But that situation ended up okay, but could have been really bad, long swim.
we pulled into, so we left Eminence, pulled in to scout the next rapid, and this was, I think, a 4 Quagnet or whatever it is. It was a nothing rapid, but that day Mike said, stay far right. And it was easily a 9 or a 10, but in the book, I think it's a 4, maybe a 5. So stuff like that, that if you don't have some Yoda Grand Canyon guru telling you what it is, that was there in 1987 in his kayak and took really good notes, you could get in trouble. But in order to scout that rapid, I pulled in, I couldn't get into the bushes, and John tried to next eddy behind me, and he's pushed, and the water's going by, and these are the tamarisks that are way up. And so John's rowing in, and he tells Natalie, jump. She jumps over her head. She's holding onto the tamarisk. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try the next one. I'm going in, and I know we're going to get wet, but we want to scout this rapid. I'm pushing in. All right, Bruce, jump. Bruce is over his head. But if you don't have people willing to jump in water in the Grand Canyon in April where it's cold, we had dry suits on. If you don't have people mobile enough, strong enough, willing to say, when I say jump, you jump now, because I'm pushing. Bruce is in his water. I just hold on to the boat, and I have my rope, and I, run as fast as I can, jump over his head, kind of swim to shore, and all these other boats are fighting in the eddy to see if I can make it. Run up there, find a little tree, pull Bruce back in, and then we tied all the boats to ours and the dory in the back. But that is just getting to a scout. Instead of just, we'll just float up here. No, you have to have some strong people willing to get wet, hold on to the tamarisks. So that was just amazing amount of work. And it wouldn't have happened if there's only one person in that boat. You need to have someone willing to say, go and go now. So that was something that was not in the guidebook. All right, so hikes.
Okay, we'll go through this next part really quickly, and then go on to boat building. But that, I guess that reminds me, that was the only safety thing that I think we couldn't deal with, and that was having two people in each boat. So Jason was on his own for most of the time. But we had 3 people in the dory. So, yeah. Okay, so hikes, this is just to give you an idea. We just had an incredible number of hikes, almost all of them with water, because there is so much water in the canyon, and you don't think about it. And actually this one is kind of hidden. This is a picture of Mike on a hike, and I think we put it in here because he was always out there and we were always sort of chasing him, but people waited for us. Jason came and checked on us one time when we were very late coming back, because we hiked more slowly. No, that's the Havasu. So that's Havasu, and this is Havasu. This is Mount Katamiba, and this I think is on the way up to the red wall, at Eminence. Some of us didn't get all the way to the top. The flowers were incredible. This was Nankoweap, I guess. And we just had absolutely wonderful hikes. Most people went on most of them. I don't think I have a photo of I'm forgetting the name of it. The canyon we went and listened to Mike play. Blacktail. Don't have a shot of that one. Mike had a guitar, and he would play in the morning, and we had he had some songs in some of the canyons. This was a camp that John walked up the canyon and found that there was a pool.
Go back one. See that rock? John's walking underneath it.
This rock?
Oh, it looks like an arch. Yeah. That's how big that rock is. It's going.
Waterfalls, just absolutely incredible. Some of them that are normally seen by people. Elks Canyon was one of them. This one was Weeping Falls. Mike knew about it and we went there. Just amazing. This is Blacktail, where we went up. And the other thing was people helping. This is people helping everybody get up or down from the fossils or from up to Matcatamiba, I think. And people were just helpful. And then we had our non-hikes. This was one of the, I think, best places as far as everybody was concerned. This is Redwall Cavern. And we were there, nobody else was there. We had the place to ourselves for about half an hour. A whole crew came and then they left. And then we had a yoga class and Mike played. And that's the sort of the end of this part of the program. These are just some of the beautiful flowers we had. It's not going to play. I'm sorry. It's playing, but it's not coming. The sound is not coming. But
You know, they're always like. It's this way of just really has the biggest thing. For some reason, you know, I never relationship you just see me, right? Everything. I know so much more than me. I don't scoop up some of that knowledge. That's the kind of person that is.
I think we can all relate to that. All that were there. That is incredible. Okay. And this is just another shout out to Lee for his wonderful photos, but Vincent, Bruce, myself and Chet all have photos in this presentation. And now whoops, to the next part. So again, we were going to do the river boat building and songbird oars, and Chet can take it away. You want the chair or not?
Yeah, I can do
Oops.
notes. So this is going to be boat building from 40,000 feet because it was a stretch to do it in a half an hour and we're over time. So it's going to be a stretch to do it in less time. So this will be just a real overview. But before I start, I just want to do a shout out for this crew that went with us. And if any of you are putting together a multi-day river trip, these are the guys you want on your trip. They don't have a permit. Get them on board because they'll make your trip a better trip. The best trip I've ever been on. Thank you, guys. So while I'm shilling, here we go. Back in 2019, I took a boat building class at the Wooden Boat School in Brooklyn, Maine. And it turned out to be a really good experience as well. This is for any of you have any idea that you'd ever want to get into building a boat, this is a great way to do it. The class size is small. You don't have to come with any expertise. There's a range of expertise among the other students. The instructors are fabulous. Our instructor here is Brad Demick from Fretwater Boat Works. Not only is he completely knowledgeable about how to build boats, he's got a strong passion for it, and it rubs off. So that was a great experience. I just want to, shout out for him in case you ever had any desire to build a boat. That's a good place to start. So one of the beautiful things about that class is at the end of the class, they raffled the boat. And there was 10 people in my class and only 5 of us wanted the boat. So I'm thinking, I'm going home with a boat. So they had the raffle and I didn't win the boat. So I said to Brad, the boat builder, hey, Brad, you got any used boats laying around? You can sell them? He goes, no, I don't have any used boats, but I'll build you one. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'll let you know. So turns out, decided to have him build a boat. And that's how we wound up at Fretwater Boat Works. And Brad has a passion for these boats, and he's rowed them hundreds of times, I think. At least he's been gliding for over 40 years on the Grand Canyon, so he knows his boats. And in his mind, this Grand Canyon dory, which evolved in style by Jerry Briggs, Brad's take on this is the best whitewater boat for running the Grand Canyon. And like boats everywhere across the world, they evolve to meet the needs of the environment and the work that they have to do. And this boat is the same. It kind of evolved from Northwest Oregon, Northwest US and Oregon road river boats that were modified by Jerry Briggs. And this has become kind of the classic boat on the Grand Canyon. And what makes this boat a little bit different, both in how it behaves in the water and from a raft, is its shape and its size. So Brad mentions here this boat is fuller and wider. So this
You're gonna be
boat,
really
this
sad
picture
about
doesn't
this,
do a
but
good job
Oakland is beating Kentucky.
explaining that this part of the boat from
I
about
think
here.
they got a 5-point lead with 4.9 seconds.
The bow and the stern are rocked up, so this boat has a lot of rocker. So it's wide across here, it's about 4 feet across here at the bottom of the boat, and it's flat for about 4 feet here. And with the rocker in the bow and the stern, the boat is easy to pivot. It doesn't, the bow and the stern don't catch in the waves. It sits on top of the waves. It doesn't draw much depth. So the boat is easier to pivot into the waves than a raft is. And it's really important for this boat because if you go sideways, like those guys did in Lava, you want to come right on the other side. The trick with this boat is you have to face the bow to every oncoming wave as you're going over. So Mike was exceptional at doing that. So a couple of things I'll mention here because we go down into boat building. I'll need to make sure you know. You probably don't have gunnels on a raft, so these boards up on the top edge of the boat here. There's 2 boards on our boat, an inner and outer gunnel, both sides of the boat. On the bottom of the boat, inside that you can't see here, is another major part of the construction of the boat. It's the chine. It runs inside and the side. It's this important structural part of the boat. So there in front of the boat is the bow stem. The back is the transom. So we'll talk about those a little bit as we go down and.
Wasn't on the list.
build the boat.
No.
So if you want to build a boat, you have a plan.
I
And back in the days when Jerry Briggs was first building these boats and the predecessors before him, the boat builders pretty much did it by touch, by feel, and by
They
experience.
scored with
If they had anything
3.9
written
seconds
down, it
left.
was on a shingle or a piece
Earned
of wood
listing
hanging in
10
the shop
times.
that maybe had some angles and some offsets, but it didn't have a
Remember to do the
complete
shuttle.
plan. And that
The
didn't
shuttle.
make it
He's
easy
on
to
the list.
share
It's on the list.
the design of a boat.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
since then, we've
Oh,
come
look,
to
there's
use
the boat. It's on the bar.
All right.
Somebody's talking in the background here and I can't.
I have to go to the post office
Anyway,
tomorrow.
this table of offsets
I have a package that if it's
that
not picked up
has
by
all
tomorrow,
the
they're gonna
measurements of
send
the
it back.
boat on one piece of paper here. All you need to make the boat anyway. So this table of offsets is linked to 3 different views of the boat. This
The
top
house
view
is
is called the
great.
half-breadth
There were
view.
people in
This
there
view is called the body
painting.
view.
Oh
This
my
view is
God,
called
the
the
fumes were-
profile
We
view.
almost died.
And
It was-
this
That
I don't know
table
how
of
they're, I
offsets
don't know how
has
they're
enough
working
information
here.
to tell you these dimensions from the
Yeah, we were
center
looking
line of the
for-
boat
still getting
out to
through
the
them.
bottom of the boat
They
or
were
out
in
to
the
the top of the
garage.
boat. We're
They're
measuring in this
painting.
direction and
It looks
horizontally
like the
the length of
fascia.
the boat, the height of the boat, at the shear, or at the shear, which is the top line, or at the chine. So that information to build a boat is transferred onto a lofting table, and that's what this picture is. It's a lofting table. It's a big, long, straight white surface that you can translate these measurements into full-size pattern, and then actually use that pattern to lay out each of the ribs, because each of the ribs are different. Lay out the side panels, lay out the complete look of the boat, and build from it. And that's what we did. So just as the boat design evolved, so did the kind of wood that's used for each of these boats. And in the case of this boat that's out front, and most of the Grand Canyon doors, what they found to be the best wood, the ribs are made out of Port Orford cedar. The plywood hull, top and bottom sides and decking are made out of marine mahogany plywood. The chines and the gunnels, the footrest, handrails, they're all made out of ash. In the case of our boat, the bow plate is made out of sassafras, and the spacers between the inner and outer gunnels on the top of the boat, they're made out of walnut. They're pretty. So it turns out that there's not enough length in commercially available marine plywood, or for that matter, chunks of ash that you can afford to buy that are clear. So you have to wind up joining these pieces together before you can build a boat. And that's what we're doing here. It's called a scarf joint. And here on this plywood, you have to bevel that edge back 12-to-1 ratio. So if the board that you're beveling happens to be an inch thick, you have to bevel back 12 inches behind that. And then those pieces are flipped on top of each other and glued, held down tight till they cure. Then you have a new joint that's as strong as the wood was to begin with. Then you have to clean it, get all that glue off, fill the holes where you had the screws holding it down to the deck to keep it clamped tight for the glue to dry. So once you've taken all your 2x10s and 2x8s and made them into the pieces that you need to build your boat, then you go back to the lofting table and actually lay it out on the table, the exact dimensions of what you're going to build a boat with. And that's what we're doing here. Each of these frames, in this case, this frame happens to have a bulkhead that makes one of the watertight compartments. So all of those are put in advance as well. So when you start putting in the ribs, if there's bulkheads in them, they're already installed. Once you've got all those pieces done, it's time to work on the bow and stem pieces. This bow stem, it's a big chunk of wood. In our case, it's sassafras. Where the side of the boat hits this bow stem, the angle at which it hits at the top of the bow is different than the angle at which it hits on the bottom of the bow. So what they're doing here is they're planing a rolling angle into the top of that bow stem. It's done by hand. And you're doing that by eye and by hand to get that angle from the top to the bottom. So when the side goes on, it all fits flat. Same thing has to happen on the transom. And that's what I'm doing here on this one. I'm planing that. And here they're getting ready to install the sides that we've cut out from that lofting table to the exact right size, attach it to the bow plate. So what they're putting on here is a adhesive that doesn't harden. It has a technical term that Brad gave it, pookie. So with pookie in the bow stem here. So in this picture on the left, Cat is holding the side. It's been screwed into the front of the bow stem. So one side of the boat is now on. They're adding pookie to the other side, lining it up carefully. And now in the back here, those two sides are put on. Right here, they're putting on a rib. Once that rib is attached, that'll be bent down and held to the other side of the boat. The next side of the side will be attached to that rib. What you wind up with one by one, putting those ribs in is a boat that looks sort of like this. Then you finish up at the stern, putting the transom in place, and that's what we're doing here. So now you've got the boat basically done, but you still need chines and gunnels. So you got to cut them to size, but then you have to also bend them, because they've got to fit around the bend, and they bend in a couple directions. They bend up and they bend around. So they get steamed. and then they get clamped to the side of the boat about where you need to install them. So if they, when they dry and cool, they hold that shape. And that's what these are here. These are chine pieces and gunnel pieces, but they're still not long enough. So in this picture up top here, what Brad's doing is he's picking out the best pieces, the pieces with no knots, the pieces that are clear grained, picking those for the important parts for where the structural integrity is important. And then we're gonna scarf those just like we did the plywood, clamp them together, let them cure, and then we're gonna take that all apart, sand them all off. Cat's gonna oil them, and then we're gonna install them in the boat. So this picture shows the boat still upside down with all the ribs in place. If you notice along the edge of the bottom of the boat here, the ribs have all been notched out so that that chine can fit in the space between the edge of the rib and the side of the boat on the inside. So that gets fit. And again, that on both ends of that piece has a compound angle. It comes in and it goes down on both ends, and it has to be the exact size length. So there's a little bit of magic that has to happen here to make that fit. One of the picture of making that happen disappeared, but it was right there a minute ago. Anyway, this picture here shows the chine installed, and where the side and the chine and the rib meet, that has to be perfectly flat. So what's being demonstrated here is Pat is planing that off with a hand plane to get it exactly flat, because the bottom has to go in next. Oh, there we are, fitting the chine. It came back. We're at Flagstaff, Arizona. No, this is 10 days, 10 hours a day for 10 days straight. We're down at Fretwater Boat Works in Flagstaff. So after we got done, just as an aside, when we got done 10 hours a day drag assing, Brad would go party, play guitar, and have music up at his place. We'd go die. And he's not much younger than me. Anyway, at this point now, it's time to get the bottom on the boat. And in order to do that, you have to make sure the boat is absolutely square and level, because if the boat is like this and you put the bottom on it, your boat's going to be cockeyed. It's never going to go straight. It's always going to curve on you. So it's an important step here to get this all leveled. That's what we're doing here. Once it's leveled, the bottom of the boat that's rough cut is just placed on top of this, and it's weighted heavily. And some lucky person gets to crawl underneath and trace the outline of all the ribs, all the chine, all the way around the bow of the stern, so that you have a perfect pattern of where this fits. And then you flip that over, pre-drill all the holes and do a rough cut to then put it on top of the boat like we're doing here and start screwing it in place. Once that's all done, you've got a bottom of the boat that kind of hangs out over the sides. And they got a little handy tool that you can use to mark a line that shows exactly where the side is going to meet the bottom of the boat. Make that mark. And then Brad comes around with a saw and cuts that off nice and smooth. And now at this point, just about done with the bottom of the boat. Now the hard, really tedious work starts. You've got the shell of a boat. You've got no watertight compartments. You've got no hoods, no hatches, no hatch latches. And this winds up being just an exercise in carpentry that's really slow and tedious. A lot of skill goes into this and a lot of patience. But I'll just show you a couple pieces here to understand a piece of the boat if you didn't notice it out front. The rower's well in this boat is self-draining. You don't have to bail it. You hit a big wave, it comes over the top of the boat. The passenger in the front, passenger in the back has to bail at least a level below their seat. But this boat, this rower's box is self-draining, because if you look at this construction here, this is the box, this is a bulkhead in front of the box, this is a bulkhead behind it. If you'll notice, it's sit about 8 to 9 inches above the floor of the boat. And in this picture, you can see that there's a drain that goes through the bottom of the boat's bottom of that rower's hole and drains to the outside of the boat above waterline. So right, so there's 3 holes on the side of the boat. 2 of them are high at the seat level. So if the boat fills with water above the seat level where the passenger's sitting, that will drain down to the seat level. The passengers then have to bail what's below the seat level. And the rower's box, he doesn't have to worry about it, he or she. It just drains by itself because that big hole is in there and it comes out above water line. there's 3 holes completely in the boat, 2 on one side and 2 for the front and back, 1 for the front passenger, 1 for the back passenger, and 1 for the rower's box. Yeah, those are at the level of the seat. And the little flap just keeps big waves from washing in and getting your butt wet when you're not in the big water. Sure.
There were times at which there was so much water in the boat that it was above the level of the passenger seats and it would drain down to the passengers. And then we were bailing with literally 2.5 gallon buckets that Miri gave us from her anyway, where she works. And the other time, when we went through lava, we had about 1.5 inches in the total. That was it.
Wow.
So after you get all those hatches built and installed, you got to get the hatch covers in. That's another, like making picture frames, and then lining all the space around this valley here with rubber gasket materials, all cut to size, glued in place, piano hinge here. After that's all done, then you're, again, like everything else, sanding it, cleaning it, getting it ready to install. So then after the hatch lids are in, the boats, all the watertight compartments are done, the hatches are in, it's time to put the gunnels on. In this picture here, what you see is the clamps holding the gunnel spacers in place while the glue is drying. And then on this side, you see the same picture on the other side of the boat with all the clamps removed, all those spacers in place. The outside gunnel is an easy fit because it just slides against the bow and the stern, but the inside gunnel, again, is just like the chine. It has angles on both ends that are compound, and it has to be the exact right length. So if you look at that boat out there, getting that in there's another piece of magic. Once that's all assembled, then you have to make sure that is in place so it doesn't fall off. It's held in place with carriage bolts that are screwed through those blocks and through the ribs. And this picture down below here is a picture of Cricket drilling a hole, being guided with a big level that's perpendicular to the side of the boat, and she's following the line of this big level here by eyeball, keeping that drill going through straight so you don't split the rib, come out, and it all gets both together. There's like 9 ribs in this boat, and probably 5 blocks or 10 blocks. They all have holes in them. They're all got carriage bolts in them. So Kat assembled just some pictures here of miscellaneous tasks that have to be done in building a boat, from patching the hundreds of screw holes that hold this thing together, priming the boat, sanding it outside and vacuum all the stuff out of it, taking the transom and cutting it so that it can be removed to put a motor on there if you want to, drilling the holes for the drainage. That's what Cricket's doing here. That hole we talked about at the level of the seat, she's drilling that hole in the side of the boat. And here they're just showing the block that holds the oar locks in place. So just a ton of little tiny details to get done. 10 days, 10 hours a day. That's what the boat looked like going out of Fretwater Boat Works. So took her home to Frisco, put it in one car garage, and then it's like, oh, we got to paint the bottom of this thing. How do we do that? Well, we managed to put it in a come along and crank that baby up on its side. Started painting. Actually, it took us longer to paint this boat than it did to build it. It took us over 2 weeks to paint it. Surprisingly, you would think that these lines are all parallel. They're not. The width of these lines is proportional to the width of the side of the boat, which changes as you go front to back, back to front. A lot of work doing that. Kat's the one that had the patience to paint all the space between all those spacers on the side of the boat. If it was up to me, they'd still be prime. No matter how you shake it, there is a lot of surface area on a boat to paint. So it took us 2 weeks. I don't know exactly. I'd say between 500 and 600 pounds. Yeah, it doesn't have, that boat doesn't have hardly any fiberglass. There's no fiberglass on the bottom of that boat. It's 1/2 inch plywood on the sides, 3/8 on the bottom, 3/8 on the side. So it's fragile. You hit a rock with it, you're gonna punch a hole in it. But there is no fiberglass on the bottom. Those hatches that we showed you being installed, those are fiberglass, but and the wells where the foot wells are fiberglassed. But other than that, there's not much fiberglass on this boat. So That's what it looks like on the river. That was our maiden voyage on the Upper Colorado. That's what it looks like in the one-car garage. And as a special Christmas present for me, Kat designed, procured, and cut out this bow plate that she had engraved with Ziljubai. And then she had it mailed to her brother-in-law, who was an engraver in Phoenix. And Paulo engraved all of these, what are petroglyphs that we took pictures of. We have a Navajo friend who has a bed and breakfast, and these petroglyphs are on her land. And she helped us name the boat, and we put those petroglyphs on the bow plate. So the name literally translates to Gray Mountain, but the essence behind that for the Navajo people, for at least for the people who help us name this boat, was the idea of resilience and perseverance, overcoming obstacles.
So what did you take with you on the trip in case you had trouble?
Oh, I had a
Did you have to use,
I'm sorry,
and did you have to use?
didn't have to, that was another thing. Mike got this boat down the canyon without a scratch on it, and not a single rock hit. We painted it after we got home, because you're pulling it up on the beach, but there were no holes, there were no gouges. It was just a repainting on the bottom of the boat. We did have a repair kit with lots of screws, lots of I don't know what you call it, a material that's comes in a roll, and it's like a adhesive on one side. It's like a big plastic roll. You can so maybe the same stuff you use for your boat. Anyway, lots of screws and
I have a hole in my. What you handed me was a big roll by carrot, so it's like a.
So it is like vinyl.
Yes.
yeah.
And a lot of plywood.
Yeah, we brought lots of pieces of plywood. On the bottom of the boat, we had like 4 pieces of plywood that filled up the bottom of the hole. Lots of screws, lots of glue, lots of that adhesive stuff, tools, saws, screwdrivers.
You could have done some repair.
We could have done repairs. We punched a hole and we were ready to fix it if we had to.
He didn't even bung up the oar.
Yeah.
Didn't even hit a wall. And I will be really quick on the oars. So let's see. So Songbird oars. Levi, Brad used to make oars, and he used to have a class on oar making, but he stopped doing that. But Levi had, I think, done classes with him before, and Levi used to build dories metal dories in Moab, but then now he's converted to strictly doing oars. He has the most beautiful oars. Go to his website, songbirdoars.com. He's an artist. So these are walnut and ash oars. He's got inlays of abalone and turquoise. It's absolutely amazing. So this was a prototype class. He had never had a class before. We wanted to take a class. He was willing to, we were his guinea pigs, and he was our instructor, and he was an absolutely wonderful teacher. Absolutely wonderful teacher. 6 days, 8 hours a day for the oar making. I don't remember, about $1,000. Yeah, a piece. Well, for the class and the oars. Yeah, and including the material, and 8 days worth of his time. So his oars are expensive, but they are incredible. This is his shop. It's a trailer next to the place where he used to work in the metalworking shop. He's got every kind of a power tool needed, but a lot of different hand tools. Some of the hand tools he's made himself. These are things that he's jigged together to draw lines, or jigs to get the right shape of the oar. Not pull saws. This isn't a pull saw. This is a what was that? No, what's the Chet? What are these? A spoke shave. That was one of the major tools that we used do the oars. So basically, in creating the thing, we started with drawing on the trailer. So he would just draw what we were going to do, and then we just added to that over the week. This is the drawing of the oar on a plank of ash. And he actually cut that out before we got there, because the wood, when it dries, it changes shape. And we had to, a couple of times, remeasure where we were making cuts so that we got a straight oar in the end. And so that's what we started with. We started with this blocky looking oar. And then the first thing we did was add companion wood with glue and a lot of pressure to get the companion cherry wood on it. And then we started using the spoke shaves, and he started completing the drawing of what the original dimension of different things were and what they were supposed to end up as. And then there was the creating this shape and a lot of remeasuring. So we used power tools, we used sanders, we used let's see, the spoke shave was one of the most common things, and we would always have lines on which to follow. So we would draw the lines to which we had to scrape off the wood. This was the end of the grip, and it ended up in a couple days. It ended up as a pentagon, I guess, or an octagon, and then we would shave it even further. So that's how that went. And then he offered either a leather wrap or a rope wrap for the center, and we chose the rope because you could move the button, and we weren't sure how they were going to fit on the dory. So we chose the rope wrap. He had a rigging of cables to hold the rope taut, put epoxy, black epoxy underneath, and then started wrapping it, and had a method of tucking the end of the wrap underneath it, pounded it a bit, and then epoxied the end so that there was a smooth edge to the end of the rope wrap. And then there was putting the button on. He had rigged up this thing where he used straps to pull apart the button and stuck the oar through and then would release it back. So he was very, very inventive, very creative, wonderful teacher. He would describe things, he would demonstrate things, we would do it. He would correct it nicely. He would ask if we needed help. He would help us when we needed to. And if we needed to reduce it by one more little ounce or one more 64th of an inch, he would step in and do it. The tips are fiberglass, doesn't require that, but we decided that with Upper Colorado and all the rocks, we might need them. So Chet here is starting to remove some of the wood from the tip of the oar blade. And this is what the condition it ended up in, so that there would be space for the fiberglass. Levi's mixing the fiberglass or the epoxy, and then putting the fiberglass cloth and the epoxy on it, and it looked like that until it was removed. And then the last thing we did was sand it and sand it and oil it, measure it again, and record both the weight of it, the length, the distance between the grip and the balance point of the oar, and also the P weight, which is how balanced the oars are. And this is what they looked like when we left, and then we eventually painted them to match the boat. So that was the end of the week. We took it home, took it out on the Colorado, took it out on Dolan Reservoir, rode it a bit and decided that the oars were really a little too heavy. You had to press down on them, so they weren't exactly balanced. They were for a more, I don't know what he called it.
He called them, I started rowing with balanced oars. He calls them floppy oars.
Yeah.
We went home and tried his oars. I came back and said, we like floppy oars.
We like floppy. So we went back and cut off a little bit of the grip to reduce the weight on the inboard end, weighed it again, and then drilled the grip. And he had melted lead and made little cylinders of lead that were put inside there, put it up on end, put the cylinder in, put more epoxy in, and closed it off so that it weighted the inboard end more, so that they were more floppy. So that is the end, and lots of thanks to go around. Thanks. I'll start down here again to High Country River Rafters for letting us do this, Downriver Equipment for hosting us here, but to Brad Dimick and Lee Jameson, who got us started in all of this. Lee, Vincent, Bruce, myself, and Chet for the photos, but then the whole crew again. And again, Mike is in pink. Mike is in pink because Mike was really, really important to this trip, but everybody was. It was a great trip, and it couldn't have been better. Yeah, couldn't have been better. Okay, that's it.